Hello and welcome back to the lab. In today's video, we're going to start work on my HP 3314A function generator. I acquired this unit about a week or so ago, and the seller gave me a really good deal on it because he said that when you power it up, the fan spins up, but nothing else happens. There's no display, there's no output, there's no response to the keyboard input. So that sounds like a lot of fun, and I've never worked on one of these before. So it'll probably take me several episodes, several different videos before I get to the root of the problem and get this thing up and running again. But if that sounds like something you might be interested in, stick around and let's get started. So here's a quick look at the front panel of the HP 3314A function generator. Um, I've already gone through and cleaned all of the exterior surfaces of the instrument. It was pretty grungy, and I wanted to make it a little bit more presentable for the camera. I've also um, added the feet to the bottom of the instrument and the wire tilt stand. Most of these units were, as in most HP instruments, were mounted in a 19-inch rack mount with the rack mount ears. They remove the feet, and the feet get lost or discarded or whatever. So, but I have plenty of feet, so I've added the feet because all my instruments are going to be standalone instruments. They're not going to be mounted in a rack, at least not at this time. Um, Also, you'll notice that the little trim strip that goes through the middle of the front panel here has faded and discolored. That is very typical with these instruments. Um, the plastics degrade over time, and this instrument is probably 40 or more years old, and I'm sure that Hewlett Packard really designed their instruments for like a 10-year effective lifespan, right? And not really the 75-year lifespan that I'm expecting to get from them. But I have a solution for that discoloration problem. The plastics simply degrade over time in the ultraviolet light, I guess, from the sun. I have a solution with that. We do a little retrobrighting process. I use let me grab it here. I use this stuff right here. This 40 volume cream peroxide developer is used for bleaching hair or dyeing your hair. I don't really know what it's used for, but this is what I use it for. I will carefully mask off the areas above and below this little trim strip, and I'll apply some of this bleach, peroxide bleach, with a paintbrush. Allow it to sit in the sun for a few hours. Carefully rinse everything off and remove the masking tape, and it should be back to its restored back to close to its original color, and should be as good as new. That little trim strip is really not an issue. Okay, what else? Um, Notice that the front panel here has these typical what we call West keys. They're named after Bill West, the engineer who designed them at Hewlett Packard. Um, they sort of define the typical look and feel of many of HP's instruments from the 1970s and 80s. Um, they're really robust, high quality switches, but over the intervening decades, they have developed a few problems, and I would like to talk a second about that now. So I did a little internet search, and I actually found the actual patent that Bill West uh, filed with the U.S. Patent Office um, on behalf of Hewlett Packard for the West key switches, and here it is. I made a copy. I made a printout of one of the figures on the patent itself of the exploded view of the switch. And so I wanted to describe the switch very carefully, the little key very thoroughly, so we'll have a good understanding what's happening with these switches. Of course, the keycap is on the top. We have the switch body itself, the key body itself, in the actual unit. These are little red plastic. It's like polyethylene HDPE or something like that, probably something like that. Um, this is the switch plunger, like the little shaft that moves up and down within the switch body. Okay, that's like a white plastic as well. Um, the 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 contact, the little contact here is like a copper with a gold electroplate over copper, and this makes contact with the makes a continuity across the two contacts that are actually traces on the PC board. Um, the switch body, the red plastic, these two little prongs that are at the bottom of the switch body poke down through two little holes in the PC board, which is the front panel PC board on these HP instruments. Okay, and then the plastic is actually melted on the back of the PC board. They have a special a tip on their soldering iron actually that they use to melt the plastic onto the plastic of the switch body onto the PC board. When you push the plunger or push the key, the plunger moves down, making contact and bridging the connections that are actually part of the circuit board. Inside of the switch body, there is a little spring steel spring that causes resistance to when you push down and allows it to spring back up. There's also optionally a little light pipe in the top of the key so that there could be an LED on the circuit board itself that shines up through the hollow part of the plunger through the light pipe and lights up the key when it's depressed or some other functionality that's determined by the instrument itself. What happens with these is two different failure modes. First of all, they weren't really designed to last for 75 years, so that's why we have some troubles with them. What I find is that they're very clicky and sticky and difficult to activate properly. Um, there's a very simple solution to that. Um, what they did originally, they applied a small amount of a lubricant, probably like a silicone or something of that nature, onto the plunger so that it would move freely inside the switch body, the key switch body. And over the years, that lubricant has gotten gummy and sticky and made the switch difficult to activate. Simply cleaning that with a little bit of isopropyl alcohol or spraying in a switch contact cleaner sometimes through from the front panel. You may have to disassemble it, but I find that almost always I can get right into where it's needed just by spraying around the key with a little bit of contact cleaner and activating the switch a couple of times, and it removes that clicky, sticky, difficult to activate switch problem that we have with so many of these old switches, and they're like new again when you do that. The other problem that can occur is sometimes this little spring um, gets dislodged from its proper location inside the switch body. And in that case, you don't really get a return action from the switch. Sometimes that spring will remain in the switch body itself, but not in the proper position, in which case it could just be pushed back into its proper place. Other times it will pop out completely out of the switch body, and sometimes they can be found inside the instrument somewhere underneath the bottom cover or something like that. Um, Even a possibility of them landing on the circuit board and shorting something out because it is a steel uh, piece of metal. It's conductive. It can short out and cause damage to the instrument. Um, that's the biggest problem. Um, but whether they stay located in the switch body or they're popped out, and either you can find them elsewhere in the instrument or they're completely missing. They have fallen out somehow. Um, uh, there are replacements for these little springs and can easily be reinserted into the switch body and make it activate properly. So what I like to use is this CRC brand uh, cleaner. Hashtag not sponsored, right? I'm not getting paid to advertise this. This just happens to be the one I like to use because it evaporates very quickly and it dries very quickly and it leaves no residue at all. So I just come in here with a very quick little burst of the cleaner like that, work the switch a couple of times, and the clicky, sticky, clicky problems disappear and they operate as good as new. Now, I've already gone through and done that with each of these buttons, and I noticed in doing so that there are a couple of them that have the other problem where the spring has been popped out. I think this one, yeah, manual sweep. There's no spring, so the button does not return on that button, and also on the up arrow over here on the range selector. Um, there is no spring in there either. I don't know if the springs are still located in the switch body, but they have been dislocated or they've completely popped out of the switch body, which happens on occasion. Sometimes they're found inside the bottom of the instrument once you take the covers off, and they can even short out the electronics in there, and that may be what has caused the problem with this one. But we're going to have to take a look at these two buttons and try to make those repairs once we get the instrument opened up. Okay, so because there may be some of those springs loose inside the instrument, I need to open it up before I even apply power to it. So let's do that now. Oh, you notice over here there's a little sign. I don't know if you can read that sign. It says metric. This instrument uses metric and English hardware. Metric and English. Um, Around the mid 1980s, HP decided that they were going to go metric, which is fine. I have nothing wrong with I have no problem with metric hardware. I also have no problem with English hardware. What I really have a problem with is when you mix the two, and that's what they decided to do for quite a long period of time. Some of the screws in here are standard American English, 632 screws. Some of them are like M3, M4, M2, M2.5. No one really knows, and if you get them mixed up, you can do some damage. So be very careful with that. It's a very frustrating thing that HP went through back in those days. That I don't know why they couldn't just do all English or all metric. It's just kind of bizarre. But anyway, we're going to open it up and see if we can maybe find those springs floating around inside this unit. Probably not. They've probably long gone, but we'll take a look and see if we can find them. So take the top cover off by removing the handle here with the two screws on the corners. Um, whoop, and this top cover should slide right off. Let's see. Um, Maybe. Maybe not. Come on now. Well, here it goes. All right. And let's do the same with the bottom cover. When you remove the bottom cover, it's best to remove the feet first. You can sometimes remove the bottom cover without removing the feet, but it's always a good practice to remove the feet before you do that, if the feet are even still on your unit. They weren't even on this one originally. I added the feet, so I'll just put them back when we're done. And there's one screw in the back of this bottom cover, and when you unscrew it, it pulls the bottom cover out with it, and that should slide off. There we go. A little dirty inside. Let's see. Let's flip it over and see if any of those springs come falling out, maybe. There's nothing in there. There is nothing in there. Okay, well, we're going to have to look for behind the front cover and take a look at, see if we can find those key springs or put some new ones in. All right, well, here's something I see right away here. It's got a battery in it. Probably is to provide backup for the non-volatile RAM or something like that. I would imagine. Chances are that battery is completely dead. I'm sure it's 40 years old or something like that. So we're going to make a measurement. Let's see. Minus, plus. Ooh, it's pretty corroded over here. Oh, we got 50 millivolts. It says it's a 3-volt lithium something cell. All right, we're going to have to replace that. You can see here, I don't know if you can see, but I can see here on the, let's see if maybe we can't zoom in. And you see the screw over here? It's all rusted and corroded from the leakage from the battery. So we need to get that battery out of there. I wonder if there's more damage underneath. I'm sure we can replace that screw. I don't know if it's metric or English, but whichever it is, I'm sure I can find a replacement for that. So what we're going to have to do is see if I can order a replacement battery for this. I also want to see if I can find some springs for those keys on the front panel. Replace that screw. Take a look underneath the board. I don't have the paper manual for this instrument as of yet. I have ordered one and it is on its way, but it hasn't arrived here yet. There is on the Keysight's website. There's a manual, a PDF file that's available to look at. But when I checked it out, the quality is pretty bad. The image quality of that PDF file is pretty bad, and so it's very hard to read. So I think I would like to wait until that paper manual arrives so I can actually take a look at the schematics before even plugging this thing in and turning it on. Well, I guess we can plug it in and turn it on and see what happens. So let's do that. We'll go ahead and plug it in and see if what the guy who sold it, see if his explanation was accurate. He said that there was, oops, sorry, bumped into the camera. He said that there was no response, but the fan turned on. Let's see what we get. Oh, the fan does turn on. But that's it. Nothing else. I don't see anything on the screen on the front display. Completely dark. The fan is running, but nothing else is happening. Um, I'll bet the power supplies are dead. And of course, we have a dead backup battery here. So, yeah. Let's get this front panel off. See if we can't do something about those switches. And for the rest of it, we'll probably wait until the paper manual comes in before we do any more troubleshooting with this unit. Let's get it turned off and unplugged before we do that. Okay, so I removed the the screws around the outside and underneath the top that are holding the front panel in place. And it seems there are some of these RCA funnel plugs that connect the BNC jacks on the front panel to the rest of the instrument. So let me pull those out very carefully. I don't know how well you can see this, but I'm going to pull those out. They are actually labeled, so I shouldn't have any difficulty in reconnecting them to the proper locations. This one, that is the main output. Is that the main output? I believe it is the main output. Actually goes to a SMC connector back here, and there is no phono plug on that. So, okay, we're getting there. Now we have a ribbon cable connector over here. Let's flip it over and remove that. See if I can't pry that loose. There we go. And all that's left is the front panel power switch connector that seems to be going all the way back to the back of the instrument, and it appears to be hardwired in place, but that shouldn't be an issue. I'll just leave it like that. Let's get this into the camera view. Okay, and we're going to pull the screws out that hold this front panel in place. One, two, three, four, see, if you look closely at this circuit board, these little red things are the prongs on the back of the key switch bodies that pass through holes in the circuit board and are melted into place to hold the switch onto the front of that circuit board. So that's what these little red things are, and that's how that works. Let's see what else we have. Oh, I'm going to have to remove. The front panel knob here. So let me do that. Yeah, that front panel knob was actually mounted to the shaft of the RPG here. What we call them RPGs, a rotary pulse generator. It's not a rocket propelled grenade. Thank goodness for that. Let's see. Yeah, the nut on the back of the BNC output connector is still holding it on in place. Let's get that off of there as well. Come on, baby. You may hear some explosions going on outside. This is actually the 4th of July when I'm recording this, and my neighbors are setting off some fireworks. So we're not actually at war. It's just our Independence Day celebration. They like to blow stuff up over here. So remove that. Let's see, is that it? I think that is it. And the front panel assembly has come off. Set that aside. And there are the West key switches. Okay, so taking a look closely at the West keys, here's an example of a spring that is in its proper location within the switch. And when you push on it, you can see that it springs and returns the push button to its proper location. Now the manual sweep button that we were having trouble with, you can see if you look right here that it's missing its spring. The spring is gone entirely from the switch body, and that's why the button does not return to its proper location when you press on it. In fact, you don't feel any resistance at all when you press on it. It's just flopping around loose in there. So we're going to have to find a replacement spring for this particular switch. We didn't find one located anywhere inside the instrument, so it must have fallen out completely. Now, the other one that we had trouble with was this up arrow switch over here. You can see on this particular switch, the spring is still inside of the switch body. It's not gone from the instrument. It's still inside of the switch body, but it's dislocated from its proper position. So hopefully with a little manipulation, I can get it back into place. It's possible that I may not be able to do that. Worst comes to worst case scenario, I can always turn it over, melt the little red plastic things and remove the switch body from the circuit board and work on it that way, and then remelt it back onto the circuit board. But that's like a last ditch effort to try to repair this particular switch. Hopefully I can just manipulate that spring into its proper location. So we're going to work on those two problems now. Okay, so I've carefully removed a leaf spring from one of my donor parts units that I have. It was a different model number, but all those West keys are the same. And here is that little tiny leaf spring. And now I'm going to attempt to slide it back into the key switch. I'm sure that I won't be able to get this on video, so I'm just going to do this off camera, and I'll come back when that has been completed. All right, it was a little bit of a struggle, but we have it. I have replaced that missing leaf spring on the manual sweep button, and it is properly located, and now the button is functioning properly. Same on the up arrow switch. That leaf spring did not need to be replaced, just reseated into its proper location, which was kind of tricky, but I managed to get it done. And now that button works properly as well. So we're going to reassemble this front panel keyboard assembly and put it back into the instrument. Okay, so I was able to get the entire front panel back onto the instrument and all the nuts and bolts into place, and all of the buttons are now functioning properly. Of course, we haven't repaired the instrument yet. I was able to locate a source for this exact replacement battery. It's still available. Unfortunately, I had to pay more for the battery than I did pay for the entire instrument. But I guess that's just what you have to do when you're working with these old things. If you don't want to redesign anything for a more modern replacement, those old parts are still available, but they're pretty expensive. Anyway, that will have to do it for this episode of the 3314. Thanks for coming to my lab and watching this episode. Please click like and subscribe. When the battery comes in and when the paper manual comes in, I will be able to do some more troubleshooting on this bad boy, and hopefully we'll be getting it working again. I know that this instrument has an undocumented Easter egg hidden inside of it that's really very special, and I would like to be able to get it running so I could demonstrate that hidden Easter egg for you. You're really going to want to see this. So come back and follow the rest of these videos until we get this instrument up and running the way it's supposed to. Thanks again for liking and subscribing, and see you on the next video.